It's been about 6 months since of the George Floyd incident. Before that, the energy was completely different. It was the Jesse Smollett case and people making fun of that. And as soon as the thing happened with George Floyd, the energy in the country completely shifted. Black Lives Matter was in charge, and the whole defund the police movement got kicked off. And what basically that movement actually succeeded in pushing politicians to actually defund the police departments, which is pretty interesting in itself because usually politicians, I mean, doesn't matter if you're on the right or the left, politicians promise a whole bunch of stuff, but secretly they have different agendas, and especially at the end of the day, the police department is part of the government. So the government has a soft spot for its own departments. They have the strong police union. That's a strong political entity. So usually they would default on not messing with its own. But nevertheless, the actual movement succeeded, and the politicians were forced to actually cut the budgets of the police departments. I don't, not quite, a lot of times politicians don't really do what they claim on the campaign trail because sometimes they might think themselves, oh, I'm going to get, that's going to be a bad outcome and I'm going to get punished for it. So I'm going to pay lip service to doing that certain thing, but we're not going to actually do it. But actually, hey, they actually did it. And 6 months later, what do you know? The police departments are getting funded again. And I would say, I would venture to guess, well, especially with all the inflation stuff, but they are going to be funded even more than they were before. Kind of typical, that's how the way the government works. Even the left's boogeyman, Ronald Reagan, he vowed to cut a whole bunch of stuff to get super fiscally conservative. But if you look at the chart towards the end of this presidency, the government was spending more money than it ever did. And here we are now. The progressives this time want to cut the police, and the police budgets are going to be larger than ever. And an interesting side note is when a certain political department fail, let's say the public schools fail to educate kids and horrible test results, kids are not proficient at reading and writing, they would never say, oh, let's defund public schools. Let's, go voucher. That wouldn't even cross their mind. Let's say if the roads are full of potholes or whatever, once a government agency fails, they would their knee-jerk reaction would not be to defund it to teach them a lesson. But somehow in this limited case, this unique case, they actually thought we need to punish them and we need to defund them. And why is that? Well, the narrative is the police department, they're a bunch of white supremacists. It's hunting season, it's open season on black people. All they do is ride around in their militarized Humvees or whatever, harassing black people, choking them out, killing them with absolutely no repercussions. They're actually making crime worse. And if we were to scale it back, cut their budget, then that money can be redirected to social programs. Whether it's after-school activities or drug rehab or whatever, you name it. They weren't really clear, but the main solution was to actually cut the funding of the police department. And if you're objective about it, now that they're completely going back on their first action and funding the police department again, that means that experiment was a failure. Not necessarily because the way it was implemented. I'm not saying the police budget should be X or Y, either way, it should be higher or lower, but the way it was implemented, now that they have to go back on their word and actually put more funding into the police, that means what they were doing was the wrong step. Should the police is there legitimate police reform that should be done? Yeah, but I'll get to that in a second. So I think the main issue here is let's say if you take in like an let's say you imagine yourself as an alien, you're just looking down super scientifically. You get the emotions completely out of it. You're not a Republican, you're not a Democrat, just a super objective alien. You're looking down. Well, I think the studies pretty much say point to the more police presence there are, the more crime deterrence there is. And having a person with a gun and a badge riding around the streets is a really, really powerful determinant, uh, disincentive for people to commit crime because they don't, people, at the end of the day, criminals, they're very perceptive of their chances of getting caught, right? And so they see police riding around, and the more they see other people getting shaken down or other criminals getting locked up, they know they got to stay low, you know. And police is defunded. Um, to how much? I mean, they are because of morale, or I don't know. In some way, it's possible that the police does have the city by the balls in a way, right? Because while the police and the criminals they oppose each other, and it's like a life or death situation sometimes. I think they actually kind of know each other, right? And because of these political reasons, the police can actually understand that hey, the city or the government or the voters want to punish us. Well, we're going to scale back because we know that once crime rises, they're going to get funded again. And how much is it on purpose? I don't know, but I think there's a really good chance that the criminals and the police know each other. The police know which gangs or which people are the problem people, and as soon as they're starting to pull back, kind of give the criminal element more room. The criminal element starts getting into finally exacting revenge on other gangs that they wanted to have beef with or whatever, and shit just spirals out of hand. You get more deaths, crime goes up. Well, there's that, and then also, basically, if there's less cops, they have to prioritize things. Once you call 911, somebody calls 911 about a shooting. Well, that's a higher priority than a quality of life nuisance. Like some people are loitering or playing music or just driving around, doing donuts in the parking lot. So, in a way, unfortunately, sometimes it is a wasted opportunity, right? Because one, you have the public sentiment after the George Floyd thing that hey, we need some police reform, something's got to change. But on the other hand, when the cops are scaled back, and now the citizens kind of change their mind as soon as they see that things are losing control. Maybe they get carjacked, maybe they get pistol whipped or something. Their house gets broken into and stuff like that. People quickly forget about that stuff and they start worrying about themselves. And at that point, they just want any kind of harsh policing. All that stuff about training and stuff like that goes out the window. People just want more cops and to just, when it comes to them, crack some skulls, man. You know what I mean? People, people care much more about their safety than they do about freedom or any other tertiary issues. Number one, number two is actual people's personal safety. So in that way, it is a wasted opportunity. Now, are there police reforms that should have been done? I think so, for sure, 100%. First, you got the police unions, which basically elect politicians, or they fund the politicians' campaigns, and it's hard to fire bad cops. I mean, they should have done away with police unions. I mean, all public sector unions, but especially police unions. There needs to be incentives to de-escalate situations, because right now, if there is no incentive to de-escalate, well, the cops, could just do whatever they want, just like torture. I mean, basically, they know how to push people's buttons, so you would react, and then that's what they want. That's what they want you to do, and things could spiral out of hand, and maybe that's exciting for them or whatever messed up human characteristics people have. Yeah, so there needs to be incentive. So de-escalation needs to get rid of police unions. Definitely tackle the situation with qualified immunity. That's definitely an issue. So, unfortunately, these three changes were not implemented. Now that they're funding the police again, the the basic core issues haven't been resolved. And partly is the reason is the ideology. The ideology. It was just too convenient. The progressive left is in love with the ideology of white supremacy. That there's white supremacists everywhere. Even if you have a black police chief, if you have a black police chief and black police officers, a majority police black, they would say that the police is systemically racist. That white supremacy is infected even the minds of black police officers. So there's something deeply wrong and corrupted about the police. But here's the thing. My main point is this. Once you take $1 away from police, they wanted to redirect that to crime mitigation. Let's say maybe after school activities for kids, or put $1 in so social work or whatever. But the issue is these things are not symmetrical. $1 of police goes a long way to solving some crime. You put 2 or 3 or 4 cops out there that patrol a certain area, that's extremely effective. You take those cops' salaries and you put them towards some soft things like after-school programs or drug rehab or whatever. Not saying that they can't be helpful, but they are not as effective and strong as actual police presence. And before people accuse me of being a bootlicker or like whatever, I'm not pro cop in any way. I mean, I like to think I'm an objective person. When I was young, I used to skateboard in a lot of businesses and plazas where I shouldn't have been. I had interactions with cops. I got not arrested, but put in the back of cop cars. I got detained before. I had friends I had just even driving around, I got pulled over by cops. And yeah, some of them are on a power trip for sure. They are power hungry. They wanted to escalate with me. I de-escalated it because I was just know how to properly talk to them, even though just putting my ego to the side. I just know it's not a winning situation, and I de-escalated myself. So believe me, I understand that some cops are jerks. You know what I mean? Power hungry, want to make your life miserable. But it's the system itself. It's not. It's the people. The quality of what's in the person's mind is not so important as the actual system. If a system enables that, then that type of side of them will come out. If a system punishes that hey, you have a score, the cops are rated on de-escalation techniques, and they know that a certain cop keeps escalating things or not in a smooth way, just making situations worse. So more violence people have to be restrained, people have to be tased or whatever. If they see that, if that's disincentivized, the cops getting fired for that, their salaries getting nixed, or they don't get bonuses, that would change. Then a different side of them will come out. I think the progressive left, the main issue is just viewing it one-dimensionally, which is, are their cops racist? Are they white supremacists? Even if they're black cops, they must be tainted by black supremacy or whatever, That doesn't have to be, that's not, some cops could be racist, or racist / prejudiced, but if the system itself rewards good policing, even racist cops can act appropriately and do their job properly, right? And then I would say most cops are not racist, but, well, there you go. 6 months update.